Welcome to our Leading with Impact session. I'm Amelia Whitelaw and I'm the Executive Director of the Wheeler Institute for Business and Development. We're a research institute that seeks to apply its business expertise to social and economic challenges in developing countries. We are absolutely delighted to be hosting this session in collaboration with our colleagues in Recruitment and Admissions. And while we're really sorry to not be able to see you in person, this virtual forum has allowed us, panelists and our audience, to be able to join us from over 65 countries. Our session is going to be about an hour today. You're welcome to share questions through the event in the Q&A function, and we will do our absolute best to include your questions into the conversation. Today's focus is on social impact, and it's greatly evolved since it emerged in the 1970s, where it was closely linked to philanthropy. But the problems we seek to solve are simply too complex for one sector to tackle or one function area to own. And I was listening to a great podcast the Social Impact Club hosted a couple of months ago around what social impact means to LBS students. And it really illustrated that social impact is viewed as a vocation, a mindset, a function, and a sector. But however we're identifying it, I believe we're really talking about challenging the status quo around the business model. And we're really looking to collectively identify approaches that allow for growth through the deliberate attention to environmental sustainability, social responsibility, and good governance. Our panelists today exemplify how you can drive impact in different ways. And from the outset, I have to apologise that Niros was unable to join us from Lagos, and our thoughts are very much with her. And this means that our conversation will be slightly skewed as we won't be able to discuss sort of the power of deploying capital, her work on the continent, and some of her challenges involved with scale and measuring impact. But I cannot thank our other panelists enough for joining us today. Welcome Kimberley, who heads up our Mobile for Humanitarian Innovation at GSMA, Zoe, an Engagement Associate at EOS at Federated Hermes, and our two MBA 2022s, Emma and Parme. I hope that this conversation gives you an insight about the sort of career you might be able to pursue or the agendas you could contribute to. And I think this is going to segue very nicely into our first question for Emma, who is, and as a student, Emma, who is very much focused on raising awareness of roles in social impact. What does it mean to pursue a role in social impact?
Hi, everyone. So yeah, Amelia, I completely agree with you. I think that a career in social impact can mean many different things to many different people. And what we've seen in the Social Impact Club at LBS that I think is really exciting is that it's not necessarily just about working for a nonprofit or in what you might think of as a traditional kind of impact role, although obviously it can include that. It's much broader than that. So at LBS, there are people who are really interested in social impact, but going to pursue careers in finance or in consulting or in corporate strategy or in tech, and actually have a really great opportunity to bring an impact lens to these roles, whether that be through, considering ESG factors or making investments or thinking about sustainability when building a new product. So yeah, I think social impact is basically a lens that you can bring to any career. And for me, that's really exciting because it provides an opportunity to make kind of a broader change to business as a whole.
Thank you, Emma. Zoe, your role at Federated Hermes is a sustainability function within an investment manager. And we had a great conversation, but I was hoping we could talk a bit about what excites you about your role, and if possible, what are a few of the projects you're involved with?
So as you mentioned, I work in sustainability, but in an asset management. So the goal behind the work that I do is really to use finance for good and to be able to invest in companies that will help in terms of sustainability. And when I mean sustainability, it really covers from the environmental sustainability to also some social aspects and some governance aspects. So we're really trying to use the funds because we work on behalf of institutional investors, and we use this as a leverage to make a change in the corporate industry. And it's really exciting to be able to learn about governance issues and looking at the boards of different companies and whether these are successful boards and will be able to lead the company to become more sustainable, and then to look at the environmental practices of the firm and just looking at the recycling put in place and all the different policies that they have, just as much as the social aspects, and looking at labor and human rights within the company, looking at the culture, the conduct, ethics, and all these different aspects that sort of match together and are very linked and give you a good idea of what the company is doing in terms of sustainability, and how you can push the company to become even more sustainable and lead in a transition.
And so I think you had a couple of examples of some of the projects you were working on. I think we were going to share one or two of those case studies. Was there anything you wanted to say about those as we continue to the conversation, or are you happy for the audience just to engage with them as is?
Yes, absolutely. So Federated Hermes posts a lot of case studies on the work that we do, and we will share one with you. So for example, this one is on Ahold Delhaize, and it's basically a food retail group. And we've been engaging with Ahold Delhaize in the past, particularly on human rights. And so in this case study, you'll find exactly who we met with in their company to push the company to have human rights reports, for example, and to give us a bit more transparency on the visibility that they had on the human rights at their firm. So I really encourage you to read that. And on the Federated Hermes, you'll find a lot more case studies of different topics that we engage on, be it executive remuneration and linking it to sustainability targets, or be it climate change targets and having emissions reduction targets for scopes 1 and 2 within your company, and even scope 3 sometimes. So have a look at the website, and there's plenty for all kinds of interests related to environmental or even social matters.
Sustainability and impact investing are sometimes, terms that are synonymously used with social impact. In Kimberley, people are talking a lot about humanitarian impact. Is this the link between the development work you used to do at Red Cross and now the agenda you're driving at GSMA?
Thank you, Amelia, and thanks so much for having me on this panel. And it's great already to hear from some of the others. Yeah, I worked for close to 20 years with different humanitarian organizations, as you've said. So with the Red Cross and Save the Children and UNICEF. And when we talk about humanitarian, we're talking about responding to emergencies. So that can be anything from natural hazard disasters to forced displacement, people moving from home or crossing borders as they become refugees because of situations of armed conflict or other drivers, or food insecurity, famine. So it's that range of real emergencies that we're unfortunately seeing more and more of around the world. I was really pleased last year to join the GSMA. The GSMA is the Industry Association of Mobile Operators. And we specifically in our program were funded by the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. In our program, we work with mobile operators and humanitarian partners to accelerate the delivery of humanitarian assistance, but using that mobile-enabled technology. As we know, many things in the world are becoming digitized, perhaps everything. And humanitarian assistance or responding to people in crisis is no different. There's been a big push for digitization before the pandemic, and that absolutely has been accelerated. So I was so excited to join GSMA because I think that it's a very unique space where public sector and private sector partners are really working together towards that impact, that social impact, that humanitarian impact, responding and innovating to find some solutions to reach the hardest places and some of the most tricky situations in the world. So to give some examples, we have an innovation fund where we trial and test new innovations. We also have that convening function where we're elsewhere in the program, where we're really bringing public sector and private sector partners together. So the range of our work, it's huge, and I won't be able to go through all of it today, but anything from having a handheld-based technology where you can detect cholera in an emergency, to using AI and an app that can diagnose malnutrition without touch, which it traditionally has been done, but also the use of mobile money a lot of humanitarian assistance now is dignified, and it gives people choice in how they tackle the solutions and the issues in their lives. So we see mobile money being used a lot to deliver humanitarian assistance. So we also are trialing voice identification to confirm that that has been received. So there's a huge, host of different solutions that we're supporting. But for me, the interest is really that partnership between different sectors coming together. And I think we'll continue to see that more and more. Some of our panelists today, already I've heard that about the interest to have social impact from a business perspective. So that's the focus, a little bit on the focus of our work at GSMA.
Thank you, Kimberley. I was just wondering, Zoe and Kimberley, reflect on the agendas you're driving. What skills or expertise or knowledge do you really respect, or what are you seeking when you're recruiting colleagues into your projects?
Do you want to go ahead, Zoe, or should I? You go first.
All right. One that pops into mind is, and it's more a quality than a skill, it's passion. I think you can definitely tell when someone is passionate about the work that they're doing. And in a role like engagement, it's very important to feel passionate about the things you're researching about in a particular company, and to feel a certain way about them, feeling optimistic that these can be improved, and then just continuing the dialogue with a company to make it better and have a real impact in that sense. And you can definitely tell when someone's passionate because they're always up to date on the latest innovation in that field, and they're curious and they're outgoing. And so I think just passion will be the fundamental quality that I'll see in my colleagues. And then it's contagious. So if someone talks really passionately about something that they've been working on, for example, assessing human rights in a particular company, then you can look more into it too, and then apply it to all the different companies. So that's definitely been a really good quality that I've seen. And perhaps I would add on to that boldness, and be willing to have an impact and to be bold and to raise awareness, to get people talking, not to be afraid that you will sound too eco-friendly or you will sound too extreme, but really going ahead with the ideas and having research to back it up and trying to make an environmental or social stance. So those would be the two that I would underline. I'm curious to hear yours, Kimberley.
Well, I agree with both of the ones you've put forward. I mean, I work with such a phenomenal team. And despite the fact that we have been mostly at home for the last couple of years, I still am really kind of excited to go to work, even though I don't have to travel too far every day. So the passionate team, I absolutely agree with you. I think that our team, and something that we look for, is really people who are like active learners and are really interested in challenging their own and each other's thinking and having that kind of trust, like space of trust. Because the amazing thing I think about our team, and I was talking about that unique space between different sectors, is that plays out in our team as well, in that we have people who have a humanitarian background, we have people who come from the mobile industry or elsewhere in the private sector. So I think the starting point is we actually have a huge amount to learn from each other. And it's that mindset that helps us go out and support solutions and work with partners from across different sectors, diverse stakeholders. So I would say quite an active learning mindset is really important for us. Creative thinking and problem solving. I mean, because often things don't go to plan for us or don't go to plan for the partners that we work with. But in a way, sometimes I feel that that's because we're making the right decisions. If we choose to support a project or an innovation in a context that's prone to crisis, if a crisis happens, in a way, maybe we're supporting and working with the right people, but we often have to adapt to different types of emergencies. And I guess across the world, we have all learned how to adapt in many different ways over the past couple of years. So problem solving and creative thinking, and being willing to chart a new direction if is needed is, I would say, an important mindset for us and the people in our team.
Thank you for that one. Pame, when you reflect on skills and qualities like trust, passion, boldness, a mindfulness, and a willingness to want to learn from each other, creative and problem solving, and creative sort of learning environments, and then you think about some of the agendas that Zoe and Kimberley are also driving out, how does LBS support individuals who are pursuing a career in social impact or have a desire to sort of acquire this knowledge and this experience?
Yes, and thank you, Amelia, for having me today as well. I can think of very numerous opportunities, actually, even from the moment of starting to apply to school, basically. Actually, and that was also a great opportunity that I was able to take part of. So right now, LBS has this partnership with Whitelaw Foundation, which is a foundation that is focused on providing scholarships for women who want to be leaders, let's say, and have some impact in the world. So, and they have this very thorough application process, but it's been an amazing opportunity for many of us who, I think that sometimes when you think about social impacts, let's say as a career, you're a bit worried about how you're going to repay MBA and that kind of thing. So knowing that there's this opportunity and that LBS is looking for women who want to be in this space and help them with this in this form, I think it's just an amazing opportunity, because it's been such a, let's say, a relief knowing that maybe I really want to go into this space, and it would take me many more years maybe to repay otherwise my loans if I were to have them, right? That's one of the ways. There's also another scholarship for anybody who would like to go into the nonprofit sector, actually, during their internship at LBS, that it's targeted it's usually like, I don't know, between 5,000 to 10,000 grants or something like that. I think it was put by alums who have been working in this space and who want to promote having more people in this space. So that's also an amazing opportunity to just, if you really want to try it, let's say during your summer internship, and knowing that some of these organizations pay a little bit less than others in the private sector, it's also an opportunity to apply and to potentially also get a little bit more of an income, let's say, during the summer. I think those are important on the sense of the economic side of it, but then thinking about classes and everything, I think that every time there's more and more classes related to this subjects, and I think I've been trying to take all of the subjects related to this space, and they're all very interesting. And you have many leading professors that are working every time more and more, let's say, with different topics in this space too. So it's nice to be able to create a network within LBS that it's not only with the professors, but also, let's say, with the social impact club, where you can start, let's say, getting more in contact with all of this and realizing that there are way more opportunities than you would have thought so in the beginning, right? And of course, the Wheeler Institute is also an opportunity for that too, with many offers in terms of like job opportunities to have an internship over the summer or during school term, also to try, let's say, working in the sector. So there are many. I couldn't even think of some more, but just for the sake of not using all the time on this, I'm going to mention just this one.
Thank you, Pame. I'm sure we'll tease out some more things as we go through the conversation. And I was really keen, Emma, we've just been focusing on some of the things that happen in London on campus, but I think some of the great things that go with hand in hand with the on-campus activities beyond the London campus. And I was just wondering if you could share with us some of the, I guess, the insights from your exchange semester in Berkeley Huss and how that sort of helped you refine your idea about social impact and your journey in that.
Yeah, sure. So and I completely agree with Pammy that there's so much going on campus, and LBS provides like amazing opportunities if you're interested in a career in social impact. And one of the highlights of my experience at LBS so far was the opportunity to go on exchange last term. So I just got back from Berkeley Haas. And the main reason that I chose to go to Berkeley, other than getting some California sunshine, is that it's got a really great reputation for social impact. And I was able to take some really interesting classes that were kind of different from some of the ones that were on offer at LBS. So took ones on climate change and business strategy, on impact investing, on social impact metrics, on the US healthcare system. And so for me, it was like a really great opportunity to think about social impact in a slightly different way and to start to build like a network of people who had similar interests to me but were based in the US, as well as kind of the network that I started to build in London through LBS. So I thought that exchange was a really amazing opportunity to think about things in a slightly different way. I think one other thing that's worth mentioning in terms of like off-campus opportunities is that LBS is really great at providing the flexibility to work alongside your classes. And so for me, that was another really helpful way of figuring out kind of like where I wanted my career to go. So this year I interned at Bridges Fund Management, which is an impact investor. So I did that part-time from January through June. And then I also did a summer internship at Tier Mobility, which is an e-mobility scale-up, and hoping to also do an internship in the coming term as well. So I think that opportunity to work alongside your studies is another way that LBS kind of helps you to figure out like what it is you're interested in and where you want to kind of end up post MBA.
Coming back to you, Emma's just mentioned the importance of internships in helping define the sort of role that you might be seeking, or to get a better sense of what you might be really passionate about. You've undertaken 3 very, very different internships to date. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about those internships, perhaps if LBS was part of that sort of decision-making, or part of how did that opportunity, and also what was the impact that you were involved in?
Yes, so I think the 3 were very different in terms of the roles and also the way I applied to them. So it's been very different experiences. The first one was a startup called Reconomy. They do circular economy basically by refurbishing e-waste, let's say old technology such as computers and phones, and then they give them like a second life to put them in schools that are right now, let's say, more digitally excluded. So that was a really nice opportunity where I was doing some business intelligence on understanding, let's say, who could be other potential clients, let's say on both sides, right? On the side of like who would like to, let's say, keep buying the product, but also who could keep, let's say, donating or giving us the old tech, right? And that was very, very interesting. And I think that it came in a very surprising way. I remember, well, since they are a startup, I mean, they did publish the application through LBS Career Center, and I saw it there. But then another thing that I had recently learned at the time was about how to reach out to the managers or the founders directly to also get your name out there, right? So I remember applying through the Career Center. But also I sent a LinkedIn message to the founder telling him that I really wanted to work with him and telling him a little bit about the skills that I could bring to the team and why I really liked them. So after that, he just messaged me back saying, okay, let's have an interview tomorrow then. And in like 3 days, I had a job basically. So I think it's a combination of both, LBS as a platform, but also of myself or anybody just going out there and like doing that extra mile, let's say, to get what you want, let's say. That was on the economy side. Then during the summer, I did an internship at Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, where I was working with the team to on the dose sharing team, most specifically, which is the team that is in charge of receiving the donations from the different governments to then distributed to developing countries. So I was working with government of Japan, more specifically, that we're doing a donation for different countries in the Pacific Islands, for example. And I was more of a project manager there, where I was overseeing that everything was going to be completed on time, and just being like this person who had to handle, let's say, all the different parts of the or parties involved and stakeholders. So I was talking at times with AstraZeneca, at times with the government, and times with our supply team or with UNICEF. So that was very, very interesting to see how the whole mechanism is, let's say, from the inside, right? And that one was very, very different. I think that one was, I got it through the Social Impact Club. So basically what I remember at the time, I was trying to organize like a panel with people working the space for the signature conference that we usually have every year. So I reached out to a few people, and then they answered back, and we just started having these conversations going, right? This relationship and what we wanted to do at the panel and that kind of thing. And by the end, one of them was like, oh, by the way, I already sent your CV to the people in our organization so that they can interview you. So it was more about the relationship aspect there, but also using, let's say, LBS's platform, which is the Social Impact Club, to get to the job, let's say. And then the third one was it is 60 decibels, which I was working there till very recently. Which is an impact measurement firm. They basically do, they measure impact that startups or maybe a VC wants to come in and just measure whether they will be investing, let's say, in a startup or not, according to the impact they're generating. And then they work by researching, let's say, what clients are feeling about it and that kind of thing, and then just create the report, let's say, on this side. And that has been very interesting too. I've really liked it because I've managed to see, let's say, how do you measure impact in different sectors. I've worked, let's say, with projects in agriculture, in rural Kenya, for example, or rural India, but also I've been working with financial inclusion and in Burkina Faso, or even with education in Guatemala. So it's been very, very interesting to see like all the diversity of this, which I've loved. And I've been able to use my French and Spanish working on this, which was very, very interesting too. And that one was basically that I remember someone from the club, from the Social Impact Club, saying that they were recruiting and that they wanted LBS students. So I was like, okay, I'll just apply. And it was also pretty easy, I would say. I mean, easy on this sense, but not easy on the sense of like, they sent like a case that we had to do and do this whole interviews where afterwards they would tell you if you were in or not. So yes, I think LBS has been a huge platform for all of this, but I think that it also requires, let's say, a lot of proactiveness from oneself to go and get it, let's say. So.
Thank you, Pami. We've got a couple of questions coming through, and then this segues nicely into one question that I was hoping to ask Kimberley as well. Kimberley, you engaged with LBS at a little bit of a later stage in your career, and you came from an international development background and just an enormous pedigree in the humanitarian sector. So why come to LBS?
I mean, how long do we have? Let me count the ways. No, I had around 14, 15 years of work experience already. And so I joined the executive MBA program where we were all working full time while we were studying. I mean, LBS really surpassed all, maybe my expectations were somewhat set. I mean, my goals were there, but maybe I didn't know exactly what to expect. There's not a huge amount of people in my sector that make that decision. So I didn't know lots of people that had been to LBS, but my goals were to, well, first and foremost was really to soak up the academic teaching and knowledge and so many different areas that I didn't have a background in. I was really excited for that, and the faculty and the quality of teaching at LBS. Two is that I really wanted to surround myself with people who worked in had different professional expertise and backgrounds to me, because I felt that would really challenge my thinking and make me see things in a different way. And I was the only person from my sector in my class of 70. And ultimately, I thought that was a win for me, because I felt I had 69 other people who had totally different careers, and I was just kind of so hungry to learn from them. And the third, and Tanya, thank you for your question in the chat. The third was that I was really interested into moving towards the private sector, but not totally leaving that humanitarian background. I didn't know, I mean, I knew about the GSMA and I followed the work of my team that I'm now in, but I didn't have like exactly what that role would be in my mind, but I knew that I wanted to work in that unique space where different types of stakeholders work together towards social impact. Yeah, and LBS kind of hit all those marks for me. It was really something. Actually, someone in my class worked in the GSMA, but in another side of the house, not in the humanitarian and development side. And when this role that I'm now in came up, he shared it with me and said, oh, this might be something interesting for you. So I put in my application. So I learned a huge amount. I really love my classmates and everything I could learn from them. And then I felt that the Wheeler Institute was kind of that like icing on the cake, because I didn't know about it before I arrived. And it was so good to have a space where we, Amelia, with you and your team, could collaborate and bring ideas of how we could bring the humanitarian sector close to the business sector and how we could work together towards kind of leveraging and harnessing different types of professional expertise and backgrounds. So that was just a great experience as well. And so Tanya, your question on the path, well, I guess I've answered that. That's the path I took, and I didn't know exactly what it would be, but I had an idea of what I wanted, and LBS and the MBA kind of really delivered that for me. And Estefania, you were saying about, I don't know, should I come on to the questions now, Amelia, or maybe I should wait? It's okay. You were saying about leveraging being a global city to build a network beyond the classroom. I mean, our class, people were flying in from around the world to attend LBS because they wanted to come to LBS. But so in our class, we were able to build a network. And I think that's, and then also I think LBS offers a lot. In addition, there's a, it's just, you have to make choices about how to spend your time, especially for us, because we were working full time, but there are so many things available. And it's just being strategic about how you choose to put your energy. But for me, I really focused on my class, about learning from them and the network they have. And I think an amazing thing or experience that I had was that people are really willing to draw on their network for you. If you're interested in something and you want to learn about something, they will help you to kind of find the right people to learn about what you're interested in. So I'll stop there, but as you can say, I had a great experience at LBS. It was hard work. The executive MBA is, you don't get a lot of sleep, but it's all worth it, and you can recover after the 2 years are over.
Thank you, Kimberley. We're getting a couple of questions about impact investing, perhaps some of the electives that might be available, if there are any sort of specific internships or places that we might be able to look for internships around impact investing. I'm just trying to think. So you're most recently out of the school, working in generally the space, but also Pame and Emma, you might have something to add as well. So I was going to, so if you were happy if I directed that initial question to you, and then if Emma and Pame, if you could pick up if you thought we'd left out anything.
Yeah, sure. So that was actually a question that I also had before joining LBS, and I was really happy to find that in the electives, there's all kinds of different classes, and some of them touch on social impact. So for example, I remember I took Growing Social Enterprises, which was a really good elective. And here it touched also on impact investing and what firms can look at in terms of ESGs in companies and assess risks and so on. And I remember that both the professors were really good and were industry experts. And one actually worked at Bridges Fund Management, I believe, that Emma mentioned earlier. So you knew he sourced his information from good places, and it was really interesting to hear from them. And then another elective that I took was Managing and Investing in Responsible Business. And this was one by Professor Edmonds and Yanis. And it was really great. I mean, both of them are also really talented and could give fresh insights from the industry. I remember them editing slides the day before because there was so much novelty going on in the field of sustainability and in business. And so this was really interesting, and it sparked discussion and really got you thinking about purpose-led companies and things like this. So I really recommend both of these electives, and you'll get great insights and reflections from them.
Yeah, and I think one other thing I'd add, other than the electives, is that the Social Impact Club also puts on a lot of events around impact investing. So last year they put on an impact investing trek, where they basically got senior people from 10 to 15 impact investment firms in mainly London, but also from kind of around the world. And we basically got kind of like 1 to 2 hours with each of them. So it went on for 2 weeks. And it was an amazing opportunity to hear about the different funds, their different focuses, and to kind of, I guess, start building a network there as well. So I think aside from the elective, there's a lot that goes on if you want to kind of like build your knowledge of the impact investing space and start to kind of make connections as well.
Just one last thing that I wanted to add, that also if you don't come, let's say, from finance space in general, and you want to go into impact investing, it's also interesting to start learning, let's say, the basics on finance too. So there are many classes such as, I don't know, financing the entrepreneurial business that touch upon this topics. And they even have one of the classes I remember was around impact investing specifically. So I think that it's also interesting to get yourself very involved with the finance aspect of this. And there are many students who have been working on this. So I've been talking a lot with many people who have been in the VC space more specifically. And from there, you can then start understanding more about the impact part side to it. But it's also interesting to see like the basics on the finance side only, I would say.
Thank you very much. Emma, while I had you and Parme there, we had a question coming from Lizette, and she was really keen to know, just from the non-profit point of view, could you share a little bit more about the learning curves you've had at LBS, and perhaps the journey at LBS, how that's now going to help you in your journey post-LBS?
Yeah, so I actually completely agree with what Pame just said. So I, before LBS, worked in consulting and then worked at a nonprofit, and I knew that I wanted to go into a career sort of at the intersection of like sort of commercial and impact. I was particularly interested in impact investing. So I think I found the finance courses really, really helpful, particularly the ones in the first year, all the kind of like accounting courses, financial statement analysis, the like general kind of like, approaches to valuing businesses and that kind of thing I found really helpful. I think also what was interesting though is I was a bit nervous coming into the MBA that there might be, that everyone would be coming from consulting or from finance, but actually there are a lot of people who come from nonprofit backgrounds. So it's also nice to kind of have a bit of a community of people who had come from a similar background to me and were, I guess going through kind of the same thing. So yeah, a lot of like-minded people.
Thank you, Emma. I was just quickly looking at something else that came through in there, and there was a follow-up about, and again, this is going to go, I think, to our Zoe, Parme, and Emma. Kimberley, I'm coming back to you quickly, though. We've been asked a bit about fintech. Is there something specific that goes on campus with fintech? How are we leveraging technology? How are we looking at, how are we exploring that? I know obviously from the conversations we have with our Tech and Media Club, they're doing a lot in that space, but in the Social Impact Club as well, I think they've got a big focus with tech. Was there anything specific that we could answer around that?
Maybe I can touch upon a little bit on that, but let's say more on the fintech side, yes, you do have, for example, electives on that, like fintech specifically, that's the elective. So you can learn a lot about that. But then on the Social Impact Club, you also have like Tech for Good, for example, and like all these pillars that are also trying to see, let's say, how you can use tech and leverage it in a way that you can use it for social impact. So I would say that you will always find someone at LBS who is doing something similar to what you would like to do or something like that, or someone who you can spark a conversation with, I would say. So yeah, I think it's the club, it's a great platform for that.
Thank you for that. So can I take it to you just for a minute? From your time at LBS, what has helped you become most confident in your current role?
Something that's prepared me really well for my current role was being part of the Social Impact Club Exco. So this was a really good experience because in general, you're part of a club where everyone has an interest in social impact, and we're divided into sort of subcommittees, and I was part of the corporate sustainability pillar. And so in the frame of this club, we would organize events with people from the industry. I remember we organized an event with Ocean Bottle, a company with an environmental mission, and actually the founders of the company were at LBS previously. And we also organized an event with B Corp, who came to tell us about purpose-led organizations, how to become a B Corp, and the importance of becoming a sustainable company nowadays. And so we really managed to engage with so many people who were being active in this industry, and it was so interesting to learn about the insights that were really fresh from nowadays, and that we could directly implement in the studying and also for things after. So many of the insights that I use today and integrate in my work come from the Social Impact Club and the insights that I got from the people who came to our events. And then additionally, the club sort of fosters a community, and everyone talks about matters of social impact, and just in informal discussions, you can learn so much from the other people and their experience too. So a lot of them are MBAs who are coming with a lot of experience and have so many things to share. So the discussions are always really interesting. And then it's really helpful when people share opportunities. I remember we had a huge WhatsApp group with a lot of members from the Social Impact Club who would just share new opportunities that had come up, whether it concerned jobs or just interesting articles and things to discuss. And we also had sort of peer groups. So much of the information that I carry with me around sustainability nowadays comes from just being active in that club and engaging with all the other members. And I think that's what's prepared me the most for my role nowadays.
Thanks, Zoe. Kimberley, I'm just going to put you in the hot seat while I try and accumulate some other questions on here and put them into some clumps. A lot of resources go into your programs, and I was just wondering, realistically, how are you actually measuring impact? Like what goes on with the impact metrics, or what makes it successful when you're looking at the big programs you're involved with?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I want to answer that in a few different ways. I mean, we first of all, we make sure that we have the right expertise and resource and capacity to monitor and evaluate and look at our work. I mean, we have impact targets in our program, and in our program is called the Mobile for Humanitarian Innovation Program. We had an original target to reach 6 million people directly with innovative and mobile enabled technology who are in a humanitarian crisis, and helping them to prepare, respond, or build resilience to humanitarian emergencies. We have surpassed that impact target, and we go meticulously through our work and with our partners to understand who has been reached, how many people have been reached, but also the quality of that service. I think there's more to our story as well than that impact number that we have in our log frame, because supporting innovation with technology, digital innovation in humanitarian assistance is also, we hope and we very much think, leading to better efficiency and effectiveness of humanitarian response. If you think traditionally with humanitarian response, you can think about, for example, handing out things in kind. So handing out food or shelter or other, and I referenced previously that we work with our members, mobile operators, also with FinTech, we're talking about that, about the delivery of assistance through mobile money, so that people have dignity and choice. But also there's an effectiveness and an efficiency. So I mentioned in the beginning that humanitarian assistance is increasingly becoming digitized. We want to make sure that that is done in a safe and effective and a dignified way. People who are affected by crisis are not passive agents of assistance. So digital technology also has the power to for people to have agency and choice, but also give feedback, and for things to be really designed with our clients or our users at the center. So I guess the short answer is that yes, we measure our impact and we have an impact number, but there's a lot of other things around that, and the principles that drive us as a program that we think also speaks to the quality of our work. That's extremely important, and we seek to communicate that and speak with our donor and other partners about how we can always be improving and planning, making the right strategic choices that are the best, absolute best value for money.
Thank you, Kimberley. I've got a big question that's come through, and it comes out, I think, to all of you, so please feel free to attack it at will. It's a conversation about wanting to transition from leading and managing projects and programs in a university environment to working with an IDP such as IADB. And from the point of view of our panelists, would the Women in Leadership program at LBS be a good fit? Now, knowing that Women in Leadership program is on the executive education side, obviously it's slightly different on the degree programs, but thinking about some of the course content that you engage with and the networks you sort of build out, do you think LBS is a good place to be engaging in as sort of a Women in Leadership program for that transition? Or potentially that might be a really difficult question if it's on the executive education, people might be a bit nervous about that one. So what I might do, I can see the individual who asked me that question, and so what I might do, if that's okay, is we will transition you to executive education and see if we can put you in contact with an alum or a participant, a past participant from that program who can kind of help you with that conversation a bit more. Sorry to put everyone on the spot there. I thought that was a good one, but maybe that one wasn't quite as comfortable as I thought it could be in there.
Amelia, if you want. I just wanted to say that my experience at LBS was that, like I said, there are so many different avenues that you can go down. If it's one academic, area of expertise, you can tailor your electives to that. If it's the clubs, if it's a network in your program. So maybe this isn't, Taitu, maybe this isn't answering your question specifically, but I think like for career transitions in terms of area of focus or sector, I think you can really, I found that I could find what I need, and a lot of my classmates did. And it's just about using the many, many resources that are provided by the school and the community there to kind of guide like the area that you want to go through. So maybe it doesn't answer kind of the very specific aspect that you asked, but I felt that it was more that there wasn't enough hours in the day to pursue all the things. So you have to choose the right thing for you, and it's a kind of all there waiting for you, I would say.
Coming down onto the last couple of the questions that we can tackle, and then I can see a few questions in there that we haven't engaged with, and I do intend to sort of follow up with you. There's a couple of questions around sustainability and green energy with technology. I'll divert that question into a better space to be able to respond to that. Some questions around the Stockholm GBE and sustainability innovation. We will get that information out to you there. Religion, and then also MIF part-time internships. So I can see those questions are there. I'm going to ensure that we actually get those questions answered, but just on this particular conversation, it might be a bit difficult for us to tackle, as Niras was our part-time, or Niras was our Masters in Finance student, so I'm sorry we're not able to engage with that one specifically. There was a lovely broad question in here, and perhaps though it might be a good one to throw to you. What would you say is the biggest change in yourself post joining LBS and working in the impact space?
I think what's changed was my vision of the social impact space, because LBS and just the conversation that you can have with the professors or the alumni or the current students help you shape a much better vision of what is out there in terms of social impact. So I went to LBS knowing that this was the field that I wanted to work in and knowing that I had just this interest in me. But I think throughout the year, you are much more acquainted with all the opportunities that are out there, whether it be in impact investing, whether it be in impact and tech for good, whether it be in NGOs, nonprofits, or just volunteering. I mean, during the year at LBS, I've just learned about all the different directions you can go in to have a career and in impact. So I think the biggest change was just visibility and learning about what was out there and constructing sort of that base of knowledge for yourself and knowing where you can head and where your skills would be the most relevant for a particular domain, if I can put it that way. So it'll teach you about the industry and yourself.
Yeah, and I would say adding to that, it's also not only you get to see, let's say, the whole diversity, but also how you can shape, let's say, your pitch to try to fit into many of these different sectors, let's say. So it's very different to do, let's say, impact consulting to impact investing to, I don't know, an NGO or to startup and yes, and social impact. But you really learn kind of how to adapt your pitch and yourself to trying to apply to all these diverse sectors, I think. And also to understand what are the steps that are needed, right? So for example, in my case, I came from healthcare background, big pharma, no experience whatsoever with investing or with, I don't know, consulting or anything, or even with, I don't know, startups. And all of a sudden you start realizing, okay, this paths to impact investing. If I don't have the finance background, I can do it through this and that. Oh, and similarly with all the other paths, right? So you start learning how to, let's say, tailor yourself, your CV, your pitch, everything towards, let's say, getting to the space that you want to work at, let's say.
Thank you, Palme. Just checking to make sure that I don't cut anyone else out. I'm just conscious that we're coming into the end of sort of the conversation, but I wanted to ask Kimberley, as we sort of look at closing off, what's something that you're really looking forward to about 2022, or what's something you're really curious to see play out in the coming 12 months?
I think that the world is in like a particularly unique and unfortunate situation with the pandemic. And there are a lot of other drivers, I would say, that that could give reason to be pessimistic, and to climate change and other things. And obviously our area of work, we work on emergencies, but all of that to say is I find, because we work in the space of innovation, and it's been a particularly unique year, or nearly 2 years, is we have seen such phenomenal solutions and partnerships and innovations that have formed because of the kind of unique circumstance that we're in. So our partners on the ground, but also their collaboration with us and our team working together. So I guess I would say is, although I expect 2022 to still be a bit unique and maybe not super smooth sailing, I am still excited about seeing the work that our partners are doing and the solutions that are being driven to really address some of the most tackling challenges in the world. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Thank you, Emily. And potentially, I'm not sure if I had preempted anyone else being sort of asked that question, but Zoe, did we have a conversation about this when we had connected previously?
I'm happy to have a go at answering this. Something that I'm excited about for 2022. I think the field of sustainability is evolving so much and at a rapid pace. So 2022 will be a year where there will be a lot of innovation, possibly new regulations, also just shaping the world and the industries. And so I guess I'm excited to see what new things just come out of the year and how these will all create a positive impact, environmental and social ones. And I mean, technology is also right now at the forefront and can be widely used in sustainability. So seeing what sort of tech we come up with regarding just different challenges that we face. So for example, carbon storing, or digital tech that empowers just women in different contexts and things like this. So curious to see what innovations will arise and how more people will be able to benefit from them.
Thank you very much. I'm getting a slight wrap at the end, though. I was conscious that Pame and Emma, you may have one or two things you might want to add. You may not want to, but I didn't want to cut you off without giving you the opportunity to respond to that as well.
No, I think Kimberley and Zoe covered it really, really well.
That's all under control. As I was listening, and we're going to sort of close up on the Q&A, and as I said, we've kept track of some of the questions that I'm really sorry we haven't either engaged with or we haven't been able to get to. And I do promise that we will get ourselves around and make sure you do have those answers to those questions. As I was listening to our conversation today, I was really reflecting on some of the work that one of our colleagues in the Wheeler Institute does, Professor Chandy, on what you do is who you become. And I would have loved to engage with the panelists about this concept as well. And I mean, perhaps it's a conversation for another day, but I'm really struck by the passion and the diversity and just the just dedication to what you're talking about. And I think it's incredibly exciting that you're out there as our business leaders. I just want to thank Zoe and Emma and Kimberley and Pame for taking the time for this panel. They're a bit strange. You can't see everyone. We've got lots of questions flying at us and you're never quite sure where the conversation is going to go. And you've just been fantastic to engage with. And I've loved connecting with you and hearing your stories and having a catch up with you on the sideline. So thank you so much for taking the time with us, and you've really given some great insights for us today. So thank you. I also just wanted to thank the audience for your interest in this session. You've been fabulous. We've had some really, really great questions, and I just really want to thank you for spending the time with us today, and particularly in this virtual environment. When we were looking at the registrations today, the majority of the registrations were really involved around the degree programs and very much focused in London. And I hope that some of our content that for our colleagues who are interested in programs perhaps in Dubai or on the executive education was still of relevance and gave you a bit of a taste of what LDS might be about. But my colleagues from Recruitment and Admissions and Executive Education will be able to absolutely assist you with the further details that you're seeking. And I'm sorry if some of your questions have just gone unanswered and you're not quite entirely sure, but I'm hoping in the next couple of months we can resolve some of those questions. And so I just wanted to say thank you again for joining us, and the best of luck with your journeys, and have a safe season ahead of you, and have a positive new year. Thank you very much.